Most car buyers don't realize they've made a terrible mistake until it's already too late. The excitement fades, the monthly payments start to hurt, and suddenly that great deal feels like a trap. This regret doesn't happen to a few unlucky people. It happens to millions of buyers every single year, and most of them never see it coming. Here's the shocking truth no dealership wants you to hear. The biggest mistake car buyers make isn't choosing the wrong brand or model. It's something far more basic, far more common, and far more expensive. It's a decision made early, usually driven by emotion, pressure, or bad advice, and once it's made, everything else falls apart. This is where buyers get fooled right from the start. Walking into a dealership unprepared feels harmless, but it's one of the most dangerous moves you can make. Sales environments are designed to overwhelm you with lights, options, and urgency. By the time you sit down at the desk, you're already reacting instead of thinking. What most buyers don't realize is that dealerships aren't focused on selling you a car, they're focused on selling you a monthly payment. This is the trap. When you stop thinking about total cost and start thinking only about what you can afford per month, you've already lost control of the deal. Here's where regret really begins to grow. Buyers stretch loan terms to 6, 7, even 8 years just to make the payment feel comfortable. At first, it feels like a win. But months later, reality hits. You're still paying for a car that's losing value faster than the loan balance is dropping. This is the moment many buyers don't expect. You owe more than the car is worth, sometimes by thousands of dollars. This is called being upside down, and it's one of the most painful positions to be in as a car owner. It limits your options, locks you in, and turns a simple purchase into a long-term financial burden. Here's another mistake people almost always underestimate. They buy more car than they actually need. Bigger engine, higher trim, extra features, all justified in the moment as future-proofing. But months later, those features stop feeling exciting, and the payment never stops. This is where emotion quietly destroys logic. Car buyers convince themselves they deserve the upgrade, the luxury, the bigger badge. Salespeople know exactly how to encourage this thinking. They don't push, they validate. And validation is far more powerful than pressure. Now here's something that surprises almost everyone. Regret doesn't always come from buying a bad car. Sometimes it comes from buying a good car at the wrong time. Interest rates, incentives, and market conditions matter far more than most buyers realize, and ignoring them can cost you tens of thousands over the life of the loan. This is where impatience becomes expensive. Buyers who need a car now often pay the highest prices. They skip negotiation, ignore financing terms, and accept add-ons they don't fully understand. The urgency feels justified, but the regret lasts for years. Here's a mistake that looks harmless but is financially brutal. Rolling negative equity from an old car into a new loan. It feels like a clean slate, but it's not. You're just moving old debt into a new contract, often with higher interest and a longer term. This is how people get trapped in a cycle they can't escape. Each new car feels like a fresh start, but the debt keeps growing. Eventually, the payment becomes unmanageable, and stress replaces excitement. This is one of the most common reasons people regret buying a car. Here's another regret buyers rarely admit out loud. They didn't fully understand the financing. Interest rates, loan length, total interest paid, these details are often rushed or glossed over. Buyers sign papers they don't fully read because they trust the process or feel embarrassed to ask questions. This is where small percentages become massive costs. A slightly higher interest rate might not feel significant, but over 6 or 7 years, it can mean thousands of dollars lost. And once the contract is signed, there's no undo button. Now let's talk about the mistake almost everyone makes at least once. Falling in love with the car before agreeing on the deal. Once you emotionally commit, your negotiating power disappears. The car stops being a product and becomes your car, and that changes everything. This is why smart buyers delay emotional attachment as long as possible. But most people do the opposite. They imagine road trips, picture themselves driving it home, and mentally commit before numbers are finalized. That emotional investment makes it incredibly hard to walk away, even when the deal is bad. Here's something dealerships hope you never figure out. The add-ons are where a huge portion of their profit comes from. Extended warranties, paint protection, fabric protection, service plans, they're pitched as peace of mind, but many are overpriced and unnecessary. This is where buyers feel the regret months later. when they realize they paid thousands extra for features they never use or could have bought cheaper elsewhere. The regret isn't immediate, it creeps in slowly as the payments continue. Another painful truth most buyers learn too late is depreciation. The moment you drive off the lot, the car loses value. For some models, that loss is brutal. Buyers who don't research resale value often end up shocked when they try to sell or trade the car later. This is especially dangerous for buyers who think they'll just trade it in after a few years. Without understanding depreciation curves, that plan can backfire badly. The trade-in value is often far lower than expected, and the remaining loan balance makes things worse. Here's the quiet regret no one warns you about. Insurance costs. Newer, more expensive cars often come with much higher insurance premiums. Buyers budget for the car payment but forget to factor in insurance, maintenance, and repairs. This is when ownership starts to feel overwhelming. The car that once felt exciting now feels like a financial drain. And that emotional shift is what turns satisfaction into regret. What makes this even worse is that most of these mistakes are avoidable. They're not caused by bad luck. They're caused by rushing, emotion, and lack of information. And the saddest part is that buyers often blame themselves instead of realizing the system is designed this way. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. The reason so many car buyers regret their purchase isn't because they're careless, it's because the entire process is stacked against them. The system rewards confusion, speed, and emotional decisions, and punishes patience and preparation. This is where smart buyers separate themselves from regretful ones. They don't rush. They don't walk in unprepared. They understand that buying a car is one of the largest financial decisions most people make, yet it's often treated with less planning than buying a phone. Here's the first mindset shift that changes everything. The car is not the deal, the numbers are. Until the price, financing, and total cost are locked in, nothing else matters. Buyers who understand this stay calm, detached, and willing to walk away. This is why walking away is so powerful. It instantly flips the dynamic. The moment a buyer shows they're not emotionally attached, the pressure drops. Deals get better, options appear, and suddenly, the same car becomes more affordable. Here's something most buyers don't expect. The best time to buy a car is often when you don't urgently need one. That flexibility gives you leverage. You can wait, compare, and say no. Urgency is the enemy of good decisions. This is where preparation pays off. Knowing your credit score, securing financing in advance, and researching fair prices removes most of the stress from the process. It also protects you from being steered into bad deals disguised as convenience. Here's a mistake smart buyers avoid completely. They don't negotiate monthly payments first. They negotiate the total price of the car. Once the price is fair, financing becomes a separate discussion. This prevents manipulation and keeps the deal transparent. This is also why understanding loan terms is critical. Shorter loans usually mean higher payments but far less interest over time. Longer loans feel easier month to month but cost far more overall. Smart buyers choose long-term peace over short-term comfort. Here's another powerful habit that prevents regret. Researching ownership costs before buying. Fuel, insurance, maintenance, repairs, and depreciation all matter. A cheaper car up front can be far more expensive over time if these costs are ignored. This is where many buyers get blindsided. The payment fits the budget, but everything else doesn't. Over time, the car becomes a source of stress instead of convenience. Smart buyers think beyond the first year. Here's something dealerships rarely encourage. Sleeping on the decision. Taking time removes emotional pressure and allows logic to catch up. Many regrets happen because buyers felt rushed or afraid of losing a deal that wasn't actually going anywhere. This is where clarity replaces excitement. After a night of thinking, many buyers realize the deal isn't as good as it felt in the moment. That pause alone can save thousands of dollars. Here's another lesson regret teaches too late. Features don't matter as much as reliability in resale. Heated seats and big screens lose their charm, but reliability affects you every single day. Smart buyers prioritize long-term value over short-term excitement. This is why research is non-negotiable. Reviews, reliability ratings, and long-term ownership data reveal things test drives never will. Buyers who skip this step often pay for it later. Here's the final trap that causes regret more than almost anything else. Ignoring the exit plan. Every car purchase should include an answer to one question: how will I get out of this if I need to? Buyers who don't think about resale or trade-in flexibility often feel trapped. This is where regret becomes permanent. When financial stress meets limited options, even a good car can feel like a bad decision. The reality is simple. Buying a car should feel boring, calculated, and slightly uncomfortable. If it feels exciting, rushed, and emotional, that's a warning sign. The calm buyer usually wins. The excited buyer usually regrets. And here's the most important takeaway of all. Regret isn't inevitable, it's preventable. The buyers who slow down, ask questions, and stay detached almost always end up happier, wealthier, and more confident in their decision. Most car buyers regret this because no one ever taught them how the process really works. Now you know, and that knowledge alone can save you from becoming one of them.